My name's Matt Brown. I run one of the largest business shows in the world. I've done over 1,000 interviews now with the world's leading business minds, billionaires, New York Times bestselling authors, just the who's who of the business world. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because tonight is really not about me. It's about Matt Watts. And I've been working closely with him and my team around this particular project. And Matt Watts is a true legend. If I would say is actually a myth and a legend, somewhere in the middle, maybe. But tonight is really about the story behind Made with Ambition. This is a founder who's gone through complete chaos, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But really, he's built something of meaning and of value, not only to his family, but to his employees, to his clients, and to the wider world. And so tonight, we're going to explore that story. So put your hands together for the myth, the man, the legend, Matt Watts.
Okay.
Matthew, yeah, have a seat, Brad. Alrighty. So how are you feeling?
There's a lot of people here. Thank you. We had 200 seats and we had to get a few more. So thank you very much.
Okay, cool. Well, let's set some context, Matt. Obviously, the book's called Made with Ambition. Why those three words?
Well, MWA started off when I was a sole trader, moonlighting with my main job. So it's easier to call it Matthew Watts Associates to open a bank account. So that's how it started. And then when we went to a limited company a year later, we turned it to Matthew Watts Associates Limited. But as time's gone on, we then wanted the company to be less about me, and we rebranded as MWA Projects, which now means making workspace amazing, rather than my name. And then Claudia, probably with the help of a bit of AI, when I said about doing the book, came up with what MWA could stand for. And then when she said "Made with Ambition," that resonated with me.
Awesome stuff. So obviously you're in the design business, maybe the construction business as well. But talk to us a little bit about the cover and the design. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so the cover was more me. It had to be the four of us. It had to be an office building. It had to be London, because that's where most of our work is. As I said, I could have added a couple of dogs. I could have added a Spurs scarf. I would have been a bit humiliated at times. And, I could have had a golf club, but I kept it simple. So, and it's in our corporate colours, as like the lighting is and everything here today.
Awesome stuff. So talk to us a little bit about the genesis story behind, like, why did this book, or how did this book come about? So from my understanding, when someone actually said to you, Matthew, I think you should write a book, you actually laughed.
It was actually you, and then then you stung me with an invoice. So basically, you said, actually, you said about it, and I thought, I think I have a story. You guys will be able to say if I've got a story worth telling. I went home, and the kids said it was a good idea. Sue agreed. She was behind it as well, so went for it.
Perfect stuff. So in the preamble to the book, you actually describe yourself as a husband and a father first. Walk us through that.
That's everything, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got it if you got your family.
Cool. So let's talk about chapter 1. So chapter 1, for everyone, if you haven't read the book, basically, just so everyone knows, some housekeeping on the back of your lanyards, the QR code, so you can actually scan that and buy the book. Feel free to do that. There is a donation going to Thames
Hospice, just outside Windsor. They're amazing hospice. So yeah, 10% of all proceeds go there. And if anyone wants to donate to them later, please do. And Rachel, the CEO of Thames Hospice, is going to do a short slide after we finished.
Perfect stuff. Cool. So the opening chapter is called From Chaos to Clarity. You describe a childhood that wasn't easy, like many of us, but you write that those experiences forged rather a resolve in you and a promise that when it was your turn, you would do things differently.
Yeah, because I am a private person. Most people don't know. I wasn't abused. I didn't live in poverty. But my mum was seriously ill with anorexia when I was young. They had a very bitter divorce. My sisters went to live with my father in 1980. It was very, very rare for that to happen. I went between the two. Um, and, my dad he is a controlling guy. He had moments, good moments, but he was a controlling guy. And, we also had a difficult sister as well, which I don't really go into in the book, but, there's a lot of fractured relationships came because of that in the family.
Mm.
So obviously I came back and I was thinking, well, when it is my turn, I don't want any of that.
Yeah, for sure. You always kind of want to be a level above the parents, right? So, but I suppose within chaos, it's very important to find anchors, isn't it? And one of your anchors was Betty and Ted Bushnell, and you described them as small anchors of stability. And so you also dedicate your book to Sue and speak very fondly of Sue's parents. Why were these people so important, and what did they teach you about the kind of person that you wanted to be?
Yeah, it's quite weird with Betty because we called her Mrs. Bushnell and we called him Ted for some reason. And there's a little hole in the fence when we lived in Walgrave, and we used to be able to go into there, and they had this caravan, which as a kid you thought was like a house, garden gnomes everywhere staring at you, and it just was like a sanctuary. And then obviously meeting Sue and Sue's parents was a much more normal environment than I was raised in, and you went, oh, okay, this could be normality.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, like many successful entrepreneurs, which is a weird thing that I've seen doing interviews for over 10 years, they actually end studying, or they don't finish college, or they drop out of college or whatever. And you actually ended studying and going into the construction industry.
Yeah, it wasn't planned. Michael Green down there in the front row actually got me my first job. Thank you, Michael. I absolutely hated that job, but see, it was but it got me into quantities. Yeah. So anyway, I was temping for Associated Asphalt, who a lot of people will, from Henley, from old, will know the company. It was actually set up as Sidney Green and Sons, which was my great grandfather and all the children after the war set it up. And it remained a family business for many years for the Greens in Henley. And it became Associated Asphalt English China Clay. So by chance, I got a temporary job there. And then we were working on a site near Woking, and this guy got out of the car and flash suit, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I said to the engineer, what does he do? And he said, he's a quantity surveyor. And I went, oh, that's all right. I was a bit out. So literally the next day I drove up to Nottingham Trent Uni, knocked on all the doors, and I got on.
Perfect.
You can do that now. You have to go online and through all these applications. But yeah, I just got on, and that was it. That's the start.
Speaking of exposure to work environments that influenced the decisions that you made with MWA and the type of business that you wanted to build, just Schofield's, Anchor, City West, HQ Global Workplaces, and this was all before you even decided to set up MWA. So what did these companies teach you about the type of company you wanted to build?
Schofield's taught me I didn't want to do civil engineering because I didn't see any satisfaction out of laying tarmac. The Anchor it's basically a housing trust in Worthing for the loveliest old ladies, and you made their day when you turned up. They hadn't seen anyone all week, so it's compassion. City West was my brother-in-law's company, and it taught me every single thing about how not to run a company because they never paid anyone. So it left all the subbies high and dry, screaming, desperate that their business going out of date. So what it taught me was how not to run a company, and basically paying the suppliers and the subbies to me is sacrosanct.
Mm-hmm.
And then HQ, that was a proper company. You have vision, with a couple of entrepreneurs who, so yeah, that's how I saw it.
Awesome, man. So let's fast forward to November 22nd, 2002, a momentous day, an important day, the day that MWA was actually founded. And so you didn't have £1 million in funding. You actually had £25,000 in savings, as you write in your book. And you had a retainer with HQ, but didn't really have much. But you write that, which is interesting for me when I was reading your book, that you didn't really feel pressure, having that initial starting point. You actually describe in your book that you had this inner confidence that you would succeed. Where did that come from?
It's just there. You have no choice, do you?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make it work. You've got to do whatever you have to make it work.
Yeah, it's you have to burn the ships, as they say.
Yeah.
There's no.
You've got to put in the hours. You've got to respond to people. You've got to be approachable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How is that confidence translated now into when you fast forward to today, 2025? How is that inner confidence still there?
It is, but it's a shared confidence now.
Fantastic. So, interestingly, your first Monday as CEO, you didn't pitch up in the fancy attire that you're wearing today. But it wasn't exactly a corporate uniform. Was that like a statement of identity, or was it more just practical for you?
Yeah, probably a bit more practical. I had been in a job where they had to wear a suit and tie every day, which, although you had a uniform, I'm not really a suit and tie man. I mean, people ask me tonight about dress code. I don't care. They wear whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel,
Yeah.
So just turning up in jeans and a fleece, that's fine, isn't it?
For sure. I'm on your page. I hate ties. I hate them. So interestingly, you write that David Davies, he was your IT guy on day one.
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, David. 23 years later, you're still with Matt and MWA. That's pretty crazy in terms of loyalty and things like that. But who else, Matt, were your first recruits at that time?
A lady called Elaine Wiley, Elaine Howe now. It's my first recruit. She came on board as admin, secretarial, office. She was with me for about 5 years. Then we had Maureen Harrison, a name that kind of people remember. But she came in as more as a bookkeeper and office manager. She ruled the roost with finances. She looked after every penny. So she looked after the money like it was her own.
Mm-hmm. What does that type of loyalty say about the type of leader you are and the culture that you built at MWA?
Well, she stayed 15 years. So, it's obviously more difficult to get younger people to stay longer because they want to often run before they can walk, So, no, I think on the whole, we've had a lot of people who've been with us 5 years, 10 years, 23 years. He doesn't look a day older either.
Yeah, I know, exactly. In fact, they look younger. Hey, David.
I don't think you ever had hair, David.
So chapter 5 is all about the construction management breakthrough. And from what I've learned, having conversations with leaders like you, Matt, over the last 10 years, is that at some point there's this transformation that happens. Like you go from A to B. And you were a consultant at the time, and then you suddenly became a full-on contractor. And the reason for that, as you write in your book, was that you took on a £2 million fit-out in Pall Mall. Mm-hmm. You came in 25% cheaper than the competitor main contractor at the time. And so it's curious for me, but what made you take that risk? Because you could have just stayed a consultant, right? And then you chose to take on that risk. Like, what was behind that?
The client was in the ship. Basically, they'd signed a lease. It was at 2.5 mil. It didn't make the business plan work, and they begged me for a favour. Yeah. So, they trusted me to turn from consultant to contractor, and we did it, and that was the start of contracting.
Amazing. And the story then moves on, right? So now we move forward to the completion of that Pall Mall project, which was 2007. But unfortunately, that's when the financial crash in the markets at the time, as we all remember. But what was the impact?
Came from your country.
It did, right? Yeah. I mean, just blame me for everything. I take full responsibility. But what was the impact on your business at that time?
I think that it's got to be the worst out of all the 23 years was the 2007-8 crash. other people might say COVID, other people might say Brexit or whatever, but I think 2007, 8, because literally all the phones just cancelled everything. We were working on Landsbanki Bank. They go bust on you. I mean, who would expect a bank to go bust on you?
Mm.
So, just literally everything dried up. Turnover halved that same year.
Yeah, just for everyone's information, I'm South African. But let's move forward, talk about Net-a-Porter. This was a hugely influential deal for you. Talk to us a little bit about how that project came about. And you were working with Naomi Hewitt at Net-a-Porter at the time, and what ultimately did this lead to?
Yep, so we were recommended on a project management basis, because we were doing both at the same time, by a design agency. I hadn't heard of them. They were 150 staff at Whiteley Shopping Centre, but they had big aspirations to go to 450 people within 1 year. They were taking the top floor of the Westfield Shopping Centre in Shepherd's Bush, which was all earmarked to become a public swimming pool, huge 6-metre floor-to-ceiling height. Anyway, we were interviewed. Another 2 much bigger outfits are being interviewed, and fortunately, we got appointed. But the trouble we had was Westfield were the client, the developer, and the contractor. So if you tried to get them to do something, they would just do what they wanted. They were too big to kind of control. And they were moving in come on the Tuesday after Easter, and they weren't going to finish. And Westfield weren't going to work the weekend. And Naomi was like distraught. So I said, look, do us a favour. Perry Rogers, probably the guy at the time. I said, look, let's get 25 guys in each day. And we just all went in there. And for 4 days, we'd worked 14-hour days, and we just sorted out the whole space.
Mm.
So they moved in on a Tuesday. Natalie Mesnay, who's a very well-known lady in the fashion industry, kind of like saw us doing it. And then when, so she was grateful for what we did. Then when they were launching Mr. Porter across the road and taking 17,000 square foot of more space, they didn't want to use Westfield. So I came out with we could use our Pall Mall construction route. Westfield objected. They said they wouldn't take the space, and then eventually they caved in, and we did it. And they gave a contribution for what's called the Cat A and B space. So that's a developer's fit out and the tenant's fit out. And I can't remember what it was, 1.5 mil or whatever. And we did the whole job on the Cat A contribution, the whole Cat A, Cat B, and bought all their furniture and still gave them back 100 grand. So suddenly we were flavour of the month. So after that, we did all the Net-a-Porter's work for the next 10 years.
That's incredible. What kind of value do you put that down to? Is it reliability? Is it trust? What would you say?
I think you gain a trust when you work with someone, and if they see you get your hands dirty, whether you're CEO or whoever, you've got to do what you got to do, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's true, and also it builds reputation.
Yeah,
and I think especially today, it's very hard to know who to trust, especially in your industry, right?
It's renownedly dodgy.
It's crazy. I mean, especially with...
Well, they don't, it might not be dodgy, but they don't trust people, do they?
That's why they say no one's ever friends with anyone who renovates your home. Okay, cool. So chapter 6 is all about standing firm. It's 2012 to 2016. This is just prior to COVID. And so things always go wrong in business. It's never, a full box of chocolates. And so a gentleman called Tom Jiggins actually gave you a letter of termination, I believe, in a coffee shop, revealing that a firm called EOG was being taken over by a ruthless investment fund, that this happens all the time. And this, unfortunately, was representing over 50% of your turnover at the time. And so this was a triggering event, of course, for any entrepreneur it would be. And so curious to understand from you, like, how did that initial shock when you were sitting in that coffee shop, when you receive a termination, like a letter like that? I mean, I would put me into the panic stations, but what effect did that have on you?
It put me into the panic station. Yeah, it's tricky because they were my first client. his name isn't actually Tom. I changed it for the book to protect him.
Tim.
Yeah, and I like the fellow. He was just given a job, you know. But the funniest story is that hedge fund was headed up by a guy who lives in his town.
Oh,
And
really?
I remember when we were going legal, I saw him in Tesco's, and I literally had a can of Value 8 beans, and I was going to chuck at him. I wouldn't go to Heinz. He didn't deserve Heinz. It's Value. And I thought I better not. It wouldn't go down too well. But no, so when we got that termination, it was half our business. And what happened was they were wrong. They said we didn't have a signed contract. We did have they had paid us every month for 10 years, so there's an implied contract. So we got reinstated. But it was it wasn't a feeling, it wasn't a joyous feeling because they didn't want us. So, and I just had this we couldn't fight a hedge fund with unlimited funds and it put my family in danger. There's no point in doing any of that. So, but then we did sign that, the renewal contract, and then they terminated again a month later.
And like every great founder, it's suddenly creates a fire, around replacing that revenue as fast as possible. And this goes back to what we were touching on earlier about values, and you write in your book about values like transparency, treating suppliers fairly, and building real relationships with people. And that's what ultimately got you out of that situation, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, it's a combination. You treat your suppliers. I mean, there's a lot of suppliers here today, far more than clients, because basically we're one team. We might get the job, but they've got to deliver it. If they don't deliver it, we look bad. So it's all a collective. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like an ecosystem of invested interests.
And, you got other people who, they were taken over by an aggressive investment fund, but you got other people who had moved on who trusted us. So,
yeah,
and it would work.
You've, to my understanding, never raised serious amounts of capital. Is that true?
Never raised any capital apart from taking out 2 COVID loans.
Mm-hmm. What does that say about you and your tenacity to lead through these difficult times?
It's always been self-funded. Sometimes I do think that's not always the best way. It's a bit more stressful.
Yeah, I'm personally never taking.
But I'm a great believer in that. I don't like doing credit card bill. I don't, if someone gives me an invoice, it's paid.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
don't like having that.
For sure. Cool. So expanding ground. So this is now you're in the stabilization period for MWA. You write in your book about Brexit. Just out of curious, how many of you voted for Brexit in the room? Hands up. Okay, you all influenced Maddie to be more successful. Congratulations. But Brexit did happen. This was now on June 23rd, 2016. Huge market collapse, lots of disruption, project pauses, all this kind of stuff. How did the uncertainty around Brexit affect you guys at that point?
Well, the property industry does not like change. So any risk, it just closes down. It's just how it's always gone. It's caused problems with recruiting. It's caused problems with customs. We often get things stuck at customs because someone else hasn't signed paperwork. It's added bills. And I still don't really get it 10 years on, to be honest. So that's how I am with it. But it wasn't fundamentally bad. We didn't all collapse, but we've just never grown since.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to control things you can't control like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it wasn't the end of the road, as we now know. So obviously after Brexit's initial impact, you landed a past contract, interestingly, through EOG, a lady called Bex Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so she actually joined Nike. Right, so this is interesting. I love, by the way, some of the projects you were showing up on the screens earlier today. They're world class, I must say. But what led to MWA securing that Nike relationship, specifically the Nike Room 72 project?
Yeah, so the Room 72. So Room 72 for Nike is where their VIPs go. No one knows about it unless you're fitting it out. So basically, it's a closed door behind. In Soho, Black Door, and basically Federer and Ed Sheeran and people like that turn up there. They fit them out there. They take photographs in their gear and they go off with their new Nike samples. So it was a very, very high end, lots of James Bond type gadgets, secret cupboards and everything like that. So the flooring works was a nightmare. I think Neil here, he did the joinery, so it's still standing, I think. But it was a successful project, and from then it led to works for Nike in Soho. We did their gym and canteen in Sunderland, Dublin showroom. We did their Room 72 in Paris. And then it fed through to JD's of Sports. Nike owned Converse. Not everyone knows that. So we did all their showrooms. We did Girl Effect, which is their charity arm. So it just led with Nike. I mean, it's quite bizarre. We were ordering even bottles of beer for them through facilities.
Really?
Yeah, literally everything. Hummingbird birthday cakes. It was quite a random thing. But you just did it because it led to bigger work.
For sure. Speaking of other brands, you also write about ASOS, Stella McCartney, Chloe, and there were other media digital brands. You mentioned a few others there in beauty and so forth. But what's the reason for these sorts of opportunities coming about?
Well, Net-a-Porter distributed for Jimmy Choo. Jimmy Choo were moving. They knew Net-a-Porter had done. They asked Mark Sebo, the CEO, who do they use? They said us. So we got introed into Jimmy Choo. Jimmy Choo's parent company then took the top floor. Ballet Shoes took the floor below. So we got that. Then people from Net-a-Porter, a lot of them actually went to ASOS. So we were appointed to do their reception and their canteen. I mean, there's 1,200 people going through this reception every day, so you had to build around it. It was quite full on. Then we got ASOS's new head office in Paris. They then knew someone there, told Stella McCartney, so you did that. So you just get this ripple effect in between their Asian provocateur. On the media side, years before we did uswitch.com, they then got brought out by a company called Scripps and BBC, which led to UK TV, which led to all this media work. And it ended up us doing the Channel 4 newsroom and Jon Snow's studio with all the back, office that you see there. And then in the beauty way, the original founders of Net-a-Porter invested in a company called Cult Beauty. They did a black and white seamless scent, so we got recommended into there, and then that led to other works for like Shavata, Wild Nails, and things like that. So Crabtree and Evelyn. So it just ripples around.
Amazing snowball effects. So when you think about all those projects, is there one that stands out for you that you're most proud of in your career?
I think the first Net-a-Porter Westfield one, because that was iconic at the time, black and white. It took fashion to a new level, I would say.
Amazing stuff. Unfortunately, COVID was about to hit. Mm-hmm. And you write about this in your book, chapter 8, Making the Leap. And so Boris Johnson was on the television. He was like, look, lockdown's coming. And you write about this in your book, of course, a 10 a.m. team call. And you didn't really have clarity. I don't think any founder, CEO, entrepreneur, certainly I didn't when COVID happened, didn't really have clarity on like, well, what do we now do? Right. And so curious to understand, with all that uncertainty, how much did that Boris Johnson speech influence you and your decisions at that time?
Well, Boris Johnson never influenced me in any way.
You don't have any.
What I would say is this country was a shit show in COVID. I don't know how it is one, but often in this country, we think it's only here. It's probably every single country in the world felt the same way. But literally, I walked down to the office. I didn't even know if I could leave home to walk down to the office. And then we told all the sites needed to close up. We got a call from Tide, the business platform, the financial platform, saying, where are your guys? We're going, we're not allowed there. Well, why not? Look on the news. And the tubes were full of construction workers. So you had just no clue what to do. Then they introduced furlough, which was a good thing. But for the first 3 months, you were either on furlough or you weren't. There was no part-time furlough. So for a business owner, it was totally unworkable. So apart from Janine, who I couldn't furlough because she hadn't been with me long enough, everyone else was furloughed. Just to kind of take stock.
Yeah, that's crazy. But then you write in your book about the acquisition of CBS assets. Who are CBS assets for our audience that don't know?
So it was where Adam was based. He's over there, just waving. So 90% of our work was in London. I thought that we need to get out and just do D&B now. It's getting confusing. With construction, they want the design emphasis to be on the contractor rather than anything else. And we had a couple of chats with Alan, and CBS didn't make it, but it made sense to acquire them because then it would give us a foothold in the Thames Valley to do work, which it has done.
Mm-hmm.
We're still more London based, but we are getting more Thames Valley work as well.
So Argyle was another one of your clients. What prompted their return to you?
So Argyle were EOG, the people who handed me that notice before. A guy I worked with, they went into receivership, headed up buying them back. And he just called me and said, Matt, we got quite a lot of work to come on. Would you be interested? I played it cool and said, yeah, sure.
I'll phone you back. So Grosvenor Estates, you received a call from them. What led to that call, and what has that call meant to MWA over the years?
So Grosvenor Estates, now we're about 2 years on. That wasn't so quick. They called and then we had this most painful wait for months on end waiting for it because they were trying to... There's a framework agreement. You've got to be on their books to get there. So for those who don't know, Grosvenor Estates own basically Mayfair and Belgravia. So it's 3,000 buildings, the best real estate in London. So if there was one landlord I wanted to work with, it was those guys. We did then get a call saying, right, after 6 months of waiting, you've got to pitch. And they got out 5 o'clock on the Thursday and we had to pitch on the Tuesday. And we were up against the big boys. But then we got a call saying, you've actually come top out of all the tender lists. So we've now carried out 8 projects with them. We're doing a £5 million fit out in Mayfair. And we're just about to be appointed with them for another 4 projects starting in January. And we're just about to sign a 5-year framework agreement with them.
Amazing stuff. So all of this new business led to you guys accelerating up to around about £20 million a year. And obviously, any business that reaches that type of scale requires an investment in people, systems, technology, data, processes, and things like that. So how has appointing Tori as COO assisted in that whole journey and transformation?
It's changed my life. I couldn't do what Tori did, but then she couldn't do necessarily what I did. So we do work very well together. She came on as a project manager. She was never going to be a project manager. I don't know. There's something different. She was an ops lady, really. And she has put systems in place, like unbelievable systems. We're just about to get accredited next week on all the ISOs. I thought we were there, and then I read a paper over the weekend saying we've got another 24 processes to put in next year. So, but yeah, no, it's been a lot of hard work, but it's de-risking the business. We've put quoting systems in place. We've changed all our financial systems. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I call those champagne problems.
You don't have to work in these systems.
Just change the label, it means something completely different. But obviously with the business that's been running for the tenure that you guys have been running for now, at some point succession planning becomes something that you think about, especially as the business matures to a level of scale that you guys have achieved now. So for our audience, how did your observations about other business owners influence your decisions about things like succession planning?
Well, I didn't want to be my dad scrambling around at age of 82 or 3 or whatever he was trying to sell his business. And, you devalue your business massively by doing that. You devalue it probably when you're age 60 because they know that you want out. So, yeah, I'm a great believer in business owners have a duty to their employees to make that business carry on long after you. So many people sell it, go off on holiday, and the business collapses, and that isn't the right thing to do. So those different things. Obviously, you hear friends who set out to PE. Some are successful. Some get the first transfer payment. Then they absolutely hate their working life for the next year or two, and then they don't get the rest of the money. So this way is a way of having a 5-year plan, and to give the senior leadership team a chunk in the company. And then alongside that, we've done EMI schemes for the next level of people that we want to then be the next SLT.
What is a VIMBO for our audience, and how did that come about?
So vendor initiated a management buyout. So basically the owner chooses who he wants or she wants. And it's the only way that I could retain control as CEO, keep 25%, and get entrepreneurs tax relief.
Smart.
So you pay 10% on the first 2 mil.
Awesome. What was the reaction to that announcements?
I think most people probably thought I was leaving, but I knew I wasn't. What does it sound like they did?
Well, they're still here. What does it say though for your legacy beyond your current leadership?
Well, it means it continues, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So, in 5 years' time, we might do another VIMBO, or we might go PE, or we might try and get bought out by someone bigger. I don't know, but I would still like to be involved then.
Mm. What would it take for you to literally just hands off, zero? Is that in you?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So let's talk about your...
She's not very happy with that comment.
Yeah, I'm sure.
She wants to go traveling around the world.
We'll work on him. We have time. What aspects of your personal life, Matt, do you see as your greatest blessings?
Well, health, Sue, and the girls.
Anyone else?
Well, everyone here.
Just want to make sure you're all included in the blessings for there. So going back to legacy, what do you hope in terms of your legacy will be for, or in terms of you mentioned your daughters and MWA, but what are your hopes and dreams for them? Not only your family, but also MWA.
Well, I say in the book at the end, and this is all everyone starts crying, that one day when I'm long gone, I like Ellie and Claudia to walk down the street and see an MWA billboard with making workspaces amazing, and they'll think of those times.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think legacy is such an underrated thing. And from my experience, it's something we often think about when it's too late.
Yeah,
for sure. And so we'll wrap this up now. Is there one message that you hope everyone in this room here tonight, after reading your book and after hearing your story, is there one message that you would want them to take home tonight?
Yeah, I hope they think that I did have a story to tell. That's it.
Awesome stuff. Matt Watts, everybody.